Hello, and welcome back to Attack on Titan Enthusiast. One of the most popular characters in Attack on Titan was Historia Rice, the Queen of the Walls. Historia's path to becoming queen was full of many twists and turns, but her life after that was also a shock to many fans. In this video, we'll be going over the information we have about Historia, including her background, foreshadowing of events in her life, and theories about the father of her child. Please be aware, this video contains spoilers up to the final chapter of the manga. Historia Rice. In the beginning of the story, Historia appears as a girl who goes by the name of Krista Lynn. She was 12 years old when she joined the 104th class of cadets, along with Eren and the other main characters, and graduated 10th in her class when she was 15. She's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, petite girl, being 145 centimeters tall and weighing 42 kilograms. She was a really popular girl because she had a very cute face and was known for her kindness. Most of the boys and the girls were attracted to her. The person she was closest to in her days as a cadet was definitely Ymir. Ymir's words and actions had a great influence on her after her identity as Historia was revealed. Her true name was Historia Rice, and as a descendant of the true royal family, she became the Queen of Eldia in the middle of the story. After ascending to the throne, she focused on helping the poor and orphans, and was even affectionately called the Goddess of Cattle for the way she takes care of the animals on her farm, despite being the queen, coming in 10th place. Krista first appears in the manga at the graduation ceremony of the 104th class of cadets in Volume 1, Chapter 2. In that scene, when the top ranks are being announced and Krista comes in 10th place, she looks like she can't believe it, while everyone else was happy when they heard their rank. She was surprised she came in 10th place because she knows Ymir is more skilled than she is and should have been ranked above her. We find out much later that Ymir was actually concerned for Krista's safety, so she lowered her scores on purpose to get Krista into the top 10 and get her into the military police. As for how Krista was evaluated by the instructor, it's not mentioned in the manga, but that information is in the official guidebook. There, it says that Instructor Shadis gave Krista a grade of B-, meaning she was just barely the 10th best. There are probably other people who could have graduated in 10th place, and although it's not directly stated anywhere, I think Instructor Shadis might have had a suspicion that Ymir was more suitable, but because she wasn't putting in the effort, he gave it to Krista instead. Krista's backstory. We see some of Krista's backstory explained in Chapter 52 of Volume 13. Here, Krista is shown helping on a farm at a very early age and receiving no love from her mother, suggesting that she had a miserable childhood. She knew from the book she had read that it was unusual that she had never interacted with her mother. So, when she hugged her mother out of curiosity, her mother quickly shoved her off of her and said she wished she had the courage to kill her child. She was shunned by everyone around her. Her grandparents only gave her orders. The other workers on the farm didn't talk to her. And children outside the farm would throw rocks at her. The animals on the farm were her only friends. There was actually a scene before this where her affinity for animals was shown. In Volume 6, Chapter 24, Reiner, Jean, and Armin lose their horses after the female Titan attacks them during their expedition outside the walls. But the horses actually ran in the direction of Krista, and she brought them back to them after the fight. Reiner says that even the horses like her, and this was probably because she had spent more time talking to the animals on the farm than she had to other humans in her childhood. Oh, and because Reiner said that even the horses like her, and right after this thinks about how he wants to marry her, he already had a crush on Krista at this point. The death of her mother, Alma. Another tragedy Krista lived through as a child was the death of her mother Alma right in front of her. Alma worked as a servant in the house of the Rice family. but Rod Rice had an affair with her, and she gave birth to Historia. Alma thought she could become the wife of the Lord if she had his child, but she was seen as nothing but a problem to the monarchy and was killed by Kenny Ackerman. Just before Kenny killed Historia's mother right in front of her, the last words she told her were, "If only you had never been born." Kenny fought against Levi and the Scouts and eventually betrayed the monarchy, but he was also the person who raised Levi until he could take care of himself. He's not a completely bad guy, so he might have felt sorry for Historia and killed her mother before she could finish her sentence. The differences between Krista and Historia. Krista reveals her true name to be Historia, but her name wasn't the only thing that changed. Her personality did too. In the beginning of the story, as Krista, she was an extremely kind person and cared for everyone equally. She'd help others no matter how much she had to sacrifice to do so, whether that was giving her bread to Sasha after she was punished and couldn't eat, or trying to save Daz, even though they were lost in the snowy mountains during a blizzard. As a child, nobody liked her, and she thought that everyone would be better off if she died. So, the overly altruistic nature of Krista comes from her desire to be liked by others, and because she still wants to die. Aaron later says that he felt like Krista was forcing herself to smile, and her unnatural behavior made him feel uncomfortable. So maybe only Ymir and Aaron were aware of Krista's true nature. Once she became Historia, she was a lot more confident and spoke her mind, living true to herself as she had promised Ymir. She went from being a reserved character to a bold one, like when she threw a punch at Levi. She no longer has to force herself to smile. And even though she smiles less because she's become more honest, I'm sure that made people like her even more as she's gotten away from being just a cute character and shown her toughness as a queen. When you're going through Attack on Titan again, try to take a deeper look at the differences between Krista and Historia. The author's views on Krista. In an interview, Isayama-sensei says that he made a moe character because he thought it would make the readers happy, but it ended up just being a cute and empty character. However, as the story unfolded, he used this emptiness to his advantage. Because she lacked personality at the beginning, Krista could take on the role of a soldier, a queen, or any other role that was needed, even though he hadn't planned to make her that way from the start. He said that he didn't enjoy showing her character at first, but eventually, she was able to become very important to the story and ended up being one of his favorite characters. The mystery of the father of Historia's child. Maybe the biggest question mark about Historia is who the father of her child was. In Volume 27, Chapter 107, Historia said she was willing to accept Zeke's proposal and give birth to a child with royal blood as long as she can inherit the beast type. The next scene we see Historia in, she's already pregnant. But since it was never made clear who she had the child with, this obviously became something a lot of fans were talking about. In the manga, it says that the father is a young man who's known Historia since her childhood. But we never get more information than that through the whole story. It's hard to believe that some random mob character got married to Historia, while Reiner had been wanting to get married to her for so long. The guy is called Suspender Man because his face is unclear in the only image we have of him, and all that stood out were the suspenders he was wearing. Let's go through some of the theories about the father of Historia's child. First of all, the most popular theory is that Eren, the main character of the story, had a child with Historia. The reason for this is that Eren starting the rumbling and Historia being revealed to be pregnant both happen around the same time. Also, there's a scene where Historia asks Eren if she should have a child, and although she didn't specifically say his child, it could be interpreted that way. Eren was in love with Mikasa. Still, it wouldn't be too surprising if he had some kind of secret relationship with Historia. The next theory on the possible father is Levi. This seems extremely unlikely, but then why did such a theory start in the first place? In Volume 27, Chapter 108, the chapter that talked about Historia's pregnancy, there was a mysterious hooded man who was watching over Historia from afar, and people thought that this looked a lot like Levi. People also said that the hairstyle of Historia's child was similar to that of Levi's mother, Kushel. However, in my personal opinion, this is a theory that has even less evidence than the Aaron theory, and the hooded man in that scene could have just as easily been Aaron. This topic was mostly put to rest when the character book was released after the conclusion of the story. In it, it said that the man with the suspenders really was the father to Historia's child. But even now, there are some people who still don't believe this, saying that it's not clear if the character book was written directly by Isayama sensei or not. In the last chapter, there's an image of Historia holding her 3-year-old daughter, and this reminds me a lot of the image of Grisha holding a baby Aaron when he told him he was free. So, if anything, it makes more sense to me if this baby would have some kind of relation to Aaron, rather than any other main character. Let me know if you have a different opinion. Historia's popularity. In Attack on Titan, there are very few romantic elements in the story, and whenever the rare topic of marriage came up, it was always someone wishing they could marry Krista. In Volume 6, Chapter 24, when Krista brings the horses back to John, Armin, and Reiner, and in Volume 10, Chapter 39, when Reiner's hand gets bitten at Utgard Castle, and Krista bandages him up, he says he wants to marry her in his head. Ymir also mentioned marriage when talking about Krista at 2 different points in the story. The first one was in Volume 2, Chapter 5. During their first battle with the Titans, Ymir and Connie start arguing, and Krista comes between them and gets them to stop. After that, Ymir puts her arm around Krista and asks her to marry her when the mission is over. And the other time it happened was in Volume 22, Chapter 89, when Krista was reading the letter Ymir had wrote to her, and it says that her only regret was not being able to marry her. The fake personality of Krista was something she had gained from the book she had read. We can see when she's talking to Frida, the woman in her book looks a lot like the founder Ymir. I think that's why Ymir loved Krista so much, because even though Historia might not have been aware of it, they had both lived pretending to be like the founder Ymir. Reincarnated Historia. The extra pages at the end of the volumes of Attack on Titan are full of comedic misadventures and lighthearted jokes that you would never find in the main story. A lot of people were shocked when in the last volume, it turns out Attack on Schoolcast was showing a world 100 years after the main story. In other words, the characters in Schoolcasts are either descendants or reincarnations of the characters from the main story. And because even all their names are the same, I'd like to look at them as if they are reincarnations of the main characters. Historia in Schoolcast is raised the complete opposite of the way she was in the main story. She's in the top caste of the school, called the Queen Bee, and was a young lady from a well-off family who grew up without any hardships or inconveniences. Most of the time we see her, she's extremely bored and messing with her phone. In the main story, she had a really hard life and didn't become queen until later on. But in Schoolcast, she starts off as a queen. The queens in high school usually don't get the queen treatment their whole lives, so she might have a hard life later. When she first interacts with Aaron, she ends up causing him a lot of trouble. But after their conflict's over, she tries to apologize to him by returning the favor. So she isn't that mean of a girl after all. In the main story, Historia had to play the role of a good girl because of her position. But in Schoolcast, she was herself from the start. She also thought of Reiner as a gorilla or an idiot who was only good for tackling people. So she might have had similar feelings towards him in the main story. Alright, that's all we have this time for Historia. If I left something important out, or you disagree with something that was mentioned, I'll be paying attention to the comments, so please let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you again in the next video.